And we are live. It's Spencer Foreman and Chris Latham with Marketing Hub
Howdy.
Ideas. Good morning, afternoon, actually, Chris. How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's morning, afternoon, evening for some, and hopefully not too late night for others.
I have to do like my Brady Bunch. I have to go, hi, Chris, like this. When I say, just go, hi.
Reminds me of Hollywood Squares.
We've been testing out like different layouts. So you and I were talking today because it is a Sunday. It's Sunday, the 21st of April. We normally do the show on Saturday morning, but we've had lots of other things going on, including some personal stuff. And also I called a weather timeout because the weather is so nice here. But the bottom line is that we both have been enjoying the show. And I think as an experiment, we're just talking about it's a success. We may evolve the topic or the range of the topics to be more fixed or more covering things that are relevant to the stuff that we feel is important. So like this started out as a marketing hub with GoHighLevel and other stuff. It may continue to be so, but at the moment, a lot of the ideas that we're going to talk about today are really universal. And I think with the simplicity that I talked about last Friday and with the business success that I've been having lately with streamlining down, it feels to me that that might be a useful broad stroke for not only what we're going to talk about today, but in future episodes or future, whatever we're going to call this thing. It's not a podcast. It's a show.
Whatever it is, it's not a podcast.
But it's nice. You know, today, I don't know about you, because we were talking weather-wise, Chicago it was chilly, but it was sunny. And I got up and I did my 10,000, 11,000 steps. And I do some of my best thinking in two places. One is when I'm walking, and two is when I'm in my inflatable hot tub in my little backyard COVID oasis that cost me a fraction of like a real setup, but is infinitely more satisfying because, right, it cost me a fraction.
And so, you know, those are two better places than either the shower or just before you fall asleep, where most people end up having their brightest ideas.
Well, with today's topic in mind, you know, we're talking about, let's say, setting yourself up for marketing success. Today, while I was in the hot tub just before the show, sweating it out, baby, it came to me that having listened to some things this morning and then thinking about it, that I don't oftentimes find myself like starting over with marketing ideas. It's incremental steps. And it's typically based upon things that have happened in the last week or so with real life customers, or that I've read or that I've seen other people do, because there's like a combination of trends plus real world experience plus I think aspirations of the 5 whys that I talk about, like why do you want to be in this business today and in the future? What do you think about that?
It's like for the topic of planning out for marketing success, it's one of the things I think for any business to have a long vision. And it's very easy to get bogged down into let me just get it done so it's working today sort of thing. And I'm always a big fan of like plan for tomorrow so you're not having to pay 3 times the price tomorrow, just pay the one-time price today. And I think that's the big thing for many business owners getting started is starting yourself up so that things could scale in the future and you're not having to pay 4 times the price in the future. Because I've had a client who just wanted to onboard and they have an entire site built custom made. I'm like, look, guys, either you rebuild the site today or you rebuild the site in 6 months, a year from now. It's going to cost you drastically more because you're now going to have to pay to maintain that marketing work that we've done so far. And if we could get clients set up in a way that when you do reach the marketing person, that there's less friction, that they could onboard that marketing person much faster, the greater success for you and the less time you're wasting money paying them to rebuild something from scratch.
Let's take some action steps because as I say, I'm always fawning over my first million show, but the one thing they do is, Sam and Sean both bring real world examples in, and let's talk about some takeaways and real world examples. First of all, let's define, just for our purposes for today, what marketing is. And in my opinion, marketing is in the context of solopreneurs, creators, people who are running small businesses. I had lunch with a really good friend of mine who runs a small company, but it has about 12 employees and 10 salespeople, and they have a multi-million-dollar a year budget. They're in the business of selling furniture to restaurants. Now, I, on the other hand, spoke last week, and I continue to say that most of our audiences tend to be people that have successful businesses, but there's a much smaller headcount, and they tend to be virtual. So the difference between what they do, this company, friend's company, they spend millions of dollars on Google ads, where I'm not saying that couldn't work, but my big marketing push and continuing to be is on relationship marketing. finding an audience of people. Typically it'll be in a social network situation. It could be in the real world. It could be in an event that you go to in your local town. But the point is that, opening up yourself to being the source of truth, the expert, brings in, I would hope, reasonably mid-ticket to high-ticket customers who start out with something that's a very small scale. So let's talk about where you feel like your marketing success is, because to me, it's downscaled to that level. I would rather have an entrepreneur who is a pure Gen Xer who has a few thousand to $10,000-$15,000 a year to spend than on a multi-million-dollar Google ad budget.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the same thing, it's just a different leaf on the same branch, because that same person eventually, as they get that person-to-person marketing down pat, you're going to need to expand to a broader audience that doesn't know about you, and that's where you're generally going to hire a marketing agency or specialist. So what I'm going to be talking to is how to set them up for success with what you already have, and make sure the tools you have, the assets you have, that you build your marketing, your digital foundation on, isn't outdated, isn't falling apart, is forever consistent and evolving, and allows you to funnel everything back into one place.
Do you find that you have one type of customer over another? Because let's also define who your audience is. For example, we've spoken repeatedly, the WP Launch Kit solution and the other things that I do. There's 3 types of customers. And again, I'll take it over to you. Like, I have the end user who's maybe WordPress friendly, familiar, but a tinkerer. I have the implementer / agency owner, which is a big part of my customer base. They're WordPress familiar and they've been trying to use tools unsuccessfully. I give them the tool set to succeed with WordPress, but for more people. And the third is not as frequent with me, but it's like the customer who's a company or small business that's like, look, can you just do all this for us? And as of late, I've been really less favorable towards the third one, because I'm kind of leaning in on the idea that I can get more value in a lesser amount of hassle from the middle column. So where is your marketing focus on?
So my marketing focus is, I have 2 main demographics. One is e-commerce, and the other one are local service businesses. But even within that, there's a third person I end up talking to, which is the person who generally manages and maintains their website, whether it's the web developer or just their marketing person. And not a lot, but some of the time is spent on convincing them to use a different stack that'll help the business scale for the future. Because we got marketing plans and ideas eventually growing to Google ads, Facebook ads, maybe doing some podcast stuff. But knowing that the stack they have that their site is built on isn't going to allow that traffic to come in and be captured, I need to clean up house at the beginning so that when that time comes, I'm not worried about anything breaking. And that's where all the stuff with the Marketing Hub and Launchkit come into play, that I know there's a toolkit that's going to work, that's going to grow with their success of their business, is not going to slow them down, and is not going to have them having to jump ship from one platform to the next in the 6 months or a year from now, which is going to cost exponentially more.
I would be curious to discuss the ideal marketing customer, because like when we discussed marketing previously, it had a lot to do with things that were manual labor. I mean, for example, even just putting together copywriting or graphics or making social media videos for your client or pre-sub, like all of those things required creativity, but there was also like a gatekeeper element of how do you do this? Whereas this has been my AI love fest in the last 2 weeks, because I've been doing extraordinary amounts of coding and copywriting and organizing and automating. And I'm doing it across, and I think we have to just talk about AI. I'm doing it across ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, which I really do not like at all, Perplexity. And then I tried Poe, which it's just sort of like a aggregator of other stuff. My favorite so far, the winners clearly for anything to do with coding, Claude, Sonnet, or Opus win hands down. ChatGPT, I'm using 4. I have the paid one, and they said that 4 Plus Turbo is available. I cannot figure out how to find it, but I got to be honest with you. They are lying to me, because it is arguing with me like an angry teenager having a hormonal rage. Like, I cannot get ChatGPT to do anything without arguing with it. Whereas Claude is like, do this. And finally, Perplexity wins hands down for my, it's weird too, but like, it's sort of a mix between a browser and an
research
LLM.
Assistant. It's
like for copywriting or tasks.
It's the best packaging. I've been following the stuff for like the days since like Jasper and Conversion AI and Perplexity. I've listened to a few interviews with the owner. He has a different thought process about how he's going about it. So it's not like the same way ChatGPT has or just kind of chat. His thing is a researching tool. So when I'm learning about different products or different stuff or different interests, like going down history rabbit holes, you ask a question, it gives you a prompt, and it digs out and pulls resources from different places and presents it to you. And you could just keep digging in a level deeper and a level deeper. And I found that his layout of how he packages things is much more usable and is, I'm not going to say it's challenging Google search, but it's a competitor on a different level. It's not going to take over, but it can assist your searching and your researching, which is super helpful. It'd be like Google Scholar, but just for the entire web.
Let's break out the things that I'll use my week as an example of some things. Now, I don't know if it would purely qualify as marketing, but because we're launching the end result of what's been culminating for a year, these partnerships and the thing that I've been hinting at, but directly saying like the packaged version of the launch kit stuff in a variety of formats. One of the things that comes to mind is number one, you always have to have a brand. You always have to have a primary persona, whether it's for the business or yourself. So one of the things that's interesting is using the tools for searching out domain names and names that are in use and other brands. Now, I'm not going to say we're going to be exhaustive here, but for example, it's pointless to me to have a domain of something unless it's easy to say, easy to spell, easy to remember. But I think, feel it's important to myself when I do the brainstorm of, I got to see what is already in use of that name, because it just lets you get this brilliant name, easy to say, easy to spell, remember, and then somebody's been using it for some nefarious purpose, and all of the search results come back to that nefarious thing. Okay, right? So from that standpoint, amazing, incredible tools for marketing success start with, let's use WooCommerce and Woo. Now, getting very specific, but WooCommerce has been in business now 18 something years, 17 years. Everybody knows this, right? Is it how many years now?
It's a brand. It's a brand name, WooCommerce. They've had a solid brand
since ADP&R and all the rest. Okay. The point is, some rocket scientists over there decided, what a great idea. Let's change all the names and domain and everything to Woo. And again, I'm not a big SEO guy, but you just look at the SEO traffic and it was like it fell off the edge of a cliff, which is right to.
That's a big part of where like planning for marketing success, they fumble the ball drastically. And that's where they just need to consult any SEO specialist with assault experience and know-how and be like, guys, before you make a jump, let's make sure we have proper redirects. Let's make sure that we teach Google that WooCommerce is now Woo. There's all these steps, but it's the same trap business owners get into. They'll just start building things, deleting a page, adding a page. It's like, you need to have a certain process in there to get things done. You don't just kind of free will and it's like you changing your business name and not telling the government that your business name changing, your address changed. You're going to face some nasty repercussions with the law and with the taxes, with the tax person.
I mean, you've got it in the two directions. There's an old, I'm old enough to remember like when Coke tried to change its branding. I mean, there's lots of famous examples. Pepsi did, and there's lots of big brands. KFC did it, McDonald's. They all think they're being, oh, I'm so clever. I've got this $1 million agency. It's going to talk. And the problem is, it can work in both directions. If you're starting a new company or you're marketing for one of your clients, you also think the same way. But like, either you've got something that works and you can easily break it, or you've got something that you're not sure if it's going to work, but you really have to think through the concept of like, what will this mean to people? Not just in terms of easy to say, spell, and remember, but also in terms of like visual association and so forth. Like, what does this brand stand for? Is there a human being behind the brand? I think that's really important today, even if it's a company. Are you fighting the man? Like, that's one of the things that I'm embracing, because like the Emperor's New Clothes story, the kid who tells the truth, that's me. I like to think Robin Hood, where there's certain bad actors in our space that are just trying to take everything and crush the soul of what people have been building for 20 years, but also crushing the soul of customers, because I'm so annoyed by what Netflix and Prime and all the other TV channels are doing, like my story of my mom's TV being cut off on Friday, that I don't want that to happen to our customers, to the customers that otherwise have grown. So in general, there could be lots of examples, but I think that marketing is the wrapper. I saw one other thing. This is really interesting. I don't know. I picked it up on a YouTube video because I have YouTube Plus, and it was the guy who started the Sponge Daddy, who was a really big success on Shark Tank. But the story of the Sponge Daddy, if anybody has been under a rock, it's a circular sponge. It's got lit like ribs around the edges. It looks like a smiley face, so you can stick your two index finger and your ring finger or your middle finger into the eyes, and then the mouth you can stick your thumb in, but you can also like clean off spoons and knives. You can put, you know, chopsticks and stuff through the eyes. But the secret to the success was two things. He got a lot of people, even on Shark Tank, thought he was crazy. Lori Grenier said yes. Number one, it turns out that he had discovered through lots of trial and error before he even got there. Lots of trial and error. He did car detailing businesses, and he invented something for buffing out hoods of cars. I didn't realize this, that he had made contact with a company in Germany that made a special closed cell foam that had very unusual properties that he didn't even realize, because the car detailing and the sponge buffer business that he had, he sold to 3M, and they gave him, you know, reasonable amount of money. And then they shelved all of his little Sponge Daddy things that he had made because nobody could figure out what to do with it. So like Sponge Daddy almost got buried before it started. But what happened was, since nobody wanted it, they had literally left that IP to him. Something provoked him to try an experiment that he'd never tried. And he took the sponges and he dunked them into warm water. Oh, his wife, he claims, told him to do the dishes. And by dunking that closed cell foam into warm water, it changed the property of it, where it became like super soft, easy to work with. And then eventually it got harder and harder when it got, cooled off. But that was like, in addition to the shape and the other stuff that, you know, going into glasses, the magic. But here's the thing. The reason that succeeded was the guy was the carnival barker. When he went on the Shark Tank, that was one of the best presentations. He had explained in this video, he had spent weeks knowing all the numbers and practicing all the moves, and he did flow charts to explain, like, if Mr. Wonderful says a question, it's going to go this way, this way, this way, and he's always going to go out. So like on the show, he actually said, Mr. Wonderful, you're out. And he knew in advance. And so it's, if you can find it on YouTube, it's like the story of the Sponge Daddy, but it's a really good example of a solopreneur who has a lot of no's, who had something that was otherwise unsuccessful in the open market with a huge backer like 3M, because they had no idea what to do with it, right? Nothing.
And one thing that's beautiful there is we're talking about marketing, and he knew all of his numbers going into that presentation. And it's the same thing you need to do when you're hiring a marketer. You need to be able to have a place where you have all the numbers, so the marketer's not starting from scratch. Because there are countless cases where I've started working with a client and there's no analytic data. I'm like, okay, well, we're going down guessing street with not knowing where your traffic's coming from. And like, yeah, you're going to tell me it came from this, but I can't believe a word you're telling me, just because like the data is not there to be collected. So when we're talking about building yourself up for marketing success, is having these certain foundational things set up. So when you do hire a marketer, they're able to dive in, look at the past 6 months, figure out what's happening, and then be able to build your proper plan from here on out.
Hi, Alex. So let's take it to the next level, which I was also reading something today that we've talked about in the past, which was, if we're simplifying down and we're using the tools that are available through the CRM and through even the basics of what we provide in the kit or in the instruction, email was one of those channels. We talked about it in show number 2 or 3. We talked about like the popular channels. In the old days, the mailbox on the outside was the most popular. Email wasn't known. Text messaging wasn't known. We both agreed that email is by far the most popular, busiest channel as of 2024. The mail is devoid of anything. That's a different concept. And text messaging has become, thankfully, a little throttled by some controls because it's been getting out of hand, especially with phishing and stuff. But what I want to talk about is the simplification process. Is you really only have 4 steps to marketing. And this is very simple because I think of it in terms of software. You have the top of the sales funnel, which really starts at a sales page of some kind, a product, right? It could be your own WordPress WooCommerce thing, or it could be on Canva. But the point is, you get something plastered somewhere that says, I've got a pain solution. Number 2, you've got checkout. Number 3, you have post-checkout, which is either a thank you page or a post-checkout offer of some kind. But wait, there's more. And then finally, I think you could say this is like the follow-up. This is the what happens next. And that's where the relationship comes, because I think continuity is something that we've always been sort of trying for. So when you think of marketing, I like to think of it in terms of like, where on those 4 stops am I marketing, right? And the difference is really important because, again, I'm happily divorced and been dating for many years, and I have a lovely girlfriend at the moment. But like, when you date, it's exactly the same, especially in your older years, as marketing. You meet maybe somebody who's new, you've never met him before. You can't jump right to, hey, let me introduce you to my kids and my family, come on over to dinner. You have to start with like, hey, here's something that's really interesting about you, and I want to share something about me that's equally interesting. And maybe you'll end up at coffee. So that's like your sales page wrapped around with the good message. The second part, the checkout, is where you're, hey, that worked out really well. Like, I gave you some free thing. You gave me your email. We got to know each other. Like, give me $7. That's your tripwire. And then your other products. What happens after that is a decision based upon how far your date is going. So for example, if in the over 50 crowd dating, it's 3 dates till good times. But like when you're younger, maybe it was a little longer. The point is, without a biological imperative of a family and kids and all those decisions, people don't have a lot of time to waste. So sometimes like coffee, lunch, dinner, we're going to be hanging out for a while. So in the same way, you could go really quickly from your $7 tripwire to, hey, listen, why don't you try the offer on my main product? Or, hey, here's a bundle. Or why don't you get in my continuity monthly? And then finally, there's the thing which I would call, and this is where the mailbox comes in. This is the, how much am I going to annoy the hell out of you? We have 3 types of annoy the hell out of you. We have the, I sold you a one-time product, and the deal is you give me $199, $299, whatever. You don't bother me anymore. Just pick up your update when you want it. Don't talk to me. You've got the continuity low price, which is, hey, you get the software. I'll help you if there's something broken, but otherwise you're kind of on your own. And then there's the, you're buying a relationship with me. And in the same way with like upsells and the follow-up, I've had people who have been amazingly thankful, grateful when I follow up to keep them posted on something interesting, regardless of which 3. I've had other people who have shit the bed just because I sent them an email about a free webinar. So you have to gauge. I don't think we have the answers here. All right. So I've talked a lot, but like that's to me where your marketing needs to be focused, right? Where's your thoughts?
And so that's like the start of your marketing. If you're a solopreneur, you're getting in there doing yourself, you need to start somewhere. And that's where you put your sweat equity in. Like, you build a sales page yourself, you have the checkout process, you test out a few things and see what works. And by the time you've put enough money aside to start hiring a marketer, you now have data to offer that person. So they're not going in there reliving what you just lived for those 3, 6, 9 months on their dime, and then telling you 6, 9 months later, like, hey, I found a proper plan that works out. So when I'm looking at it from the side of being the marketing agency or being the marketing person coming in to kind of help you expand your business, there's a few things you need to have done. Like, if you're going to come for a sales page, let's make sure we have analytics tracking on that. So we know, okay, traffic that's coming from your Instagram page is generating a lot of sales, or traffic coming from your Facebook page, or traffic coming from your Google business page, or traffic coming from a podcast you did or an email newsletter you sent out. We know that is sending people to the checkout page. And me as a marketer started looking, okay, the checkout page comes in. How many sales did you get? It looks like out of all the work you've done in the past 6 to 9 months, the bulk of your sales have been coming from you posting on Facebook. Cool. So when it comes to the marketing strategy, we're going to focus 80% of the money on Facebook and 20% of the money elsewhere, because you got to diversify your marketing as you diversify your portfolio and everything you do. And from there, we can start using the money that comes from Facebook to close up or tighten up or button up the other end, so that you could have 2 particular funnels coming in to lead you to more sales and more growth. And all that comes from having a proper build of a site set up with the proper tools. So you have the WooCommerce set up, you have a proper landing page builder that the marketer could come in and use. There's a tagging system set up, so you can tell them, like, hey, people that bought this eventually went to bought that. So the marketer can start thinking, okay, the upsell from product A to B has an 80% success rate, but the upsell from product A to C has a 20% success rate. Let me put most of the marketing budget on A to B to keep getting you more growth and more growth. And that's just the person who's generating traffic to the site. Then when you think of hiring a marketer to nurture that email marketing specialist, now you're giving that email marketing specialist, like, saying, like, hey, traffic coming from Facebook brings us 10x more revenue than traffic coming from Instagram. And they know the demographics from Facebook or Instagram or TikTok will be slightly different. So they can then word and format their email marketing sequences to better generate more success from those Facebook leads coming in. And all that's based off of just you having the proper setup. Because if you were to hire a marketing person to do your Facebook ads and you had no tracking, you're paying them 6 months of money to just get data and then start marketing. And then that's money down the drain. Then the email marketers got to come in and get data. Like, it's just this. What's the saying? If I had to cut a tree, if I had 4 hours to cut a tree, I'd spend 3 hours and 30 minutes just sharpening my knife before having to go out and cut it. In this case, you sharpening your knife is just making sure you have the best tools. And the part that breaks my heart is you could build fast and go the Squarespace route or the Wix route. Nothing against that, but they're great tools for just kind of getting the job done. But as your business grows, you're going to have to pay someone to move it off of that platform to another platform. And that is 10 times more expensive than paying someone from the start, from Jump Street, to build it on a platform that will allow you to grow and succeed. And that's what we're offering here with the Launch Kit, is just here's everything you need in one place. Hire anybody to come in. They could use all these tools that we have curated for them to build the success you need. And as you grow and develop, you can keep expanding, and they could build landing pages on a subdomain or on a different part of the site. There's all these possibilities the marketer could do without you having to foot a bill for them to test out stuff, because what you have doesn't quite work to get the results that you want. And that's like my pain point when I meet these business owners. Like, oh man, you have to spend so much money to start. It seems expensive now, but it'll save you so much more money down the long run.
But I mean, you've gotten, that has so much I want to unpack. So I'm going to start with the basics. First of all, what you bring up, and for the show and tell, I'm holding my tags. Okay. You use the term like the proper tools and the proper platform. Okay. So again, we'll toot our own horn here by saying, one of the reasons that we do so well, one of the reasons we can be such staunch advocates for using the kit, WordPress. And by the way, it could be the information we provide, and just go buy your own ingredients and do it yourself on WordPress. There's still a way to do that. It's just, it's like everything's in the fridge and everything else is ready to go from there, or just go out and go to Whole Foods and get sticker shock. Either way, by owning and controlling the platform, the last of the things that you said comes into play, which was, I have seen historically some of my best businesses are where people have gotten locked into platforms and then got kicked off, or their stuff was taken away, Ning. And, one of my best businesses, which led me ultimately to WordPress, was that. So number one takeaway, having the tools and the platform in order to have even the basics of those 4 stops along the way, right? Like, you've got a way to measure using tags, using UTM stuff, who the people are from various ad campaigns, various marketing through relationship marketing, whatever. In other words, like, hey, I just met you for coffee. Didn't we got together at Joe's coffee shop, and you're the girl from Bumble or Tinder or whatever.
I got to add one thing to that. I'm going to bring it back to being an 80s kid here. Is that same tagging was what I used to do in high school and in college, meeting girls in the bus and metro. It's like, cool, your name is Michelle, get her phone number. Michelle, right. 64 bus. That's where I met her. So when I call, I know where that person's come from. So I was tagging back in the day.
I have the same exact process even at 57, because you meet somebody and listen, it's so funny because, like I say, it's so similar. But when we're talking about relationships, right? A CRM is exactly like the old black book that I used to have. It's just like in my iPhone. And even though today we've got these incredible tools that I wish I had had in my 20s, I would have ended up marrying a different person. But
imagine having a CRM in your dating days. Oh, in a reply message.
Right. Like, so, okay, just, let's be honest about it. It sounds like I'm so freaking old. I am. In the 90s, we used to have a printed newspaper called the Chicago Reader, and there would be ads that would say missed opportunities. Brunette on the Chicago L train with a blue coat saw you with a red coat and glasses.
And that moved to Craigslist.
There's 6 million people in the city, and that's what it was. Like, throw a dart into the air, hope it lands. Yeah. Whereas today, endless, if you know how to market yourself, endless opportunities. Okay. Now, the problem is, if you are in the marketing business and you like to date, those are so similar. You have to have a way, like a CRM, to take notes. This was my Facebook relationship, and they're younger and they use this ad and I promised them this product, versus if you do TikTok or Instagram, or I did a webinar and this is a Gen Xer who has a different motive in mind. They want to have the relationship thing versus the self-help. And by having crib notes in your CRM, either in the form of tags or in the form of custom fields, along with the UTM data, That is a necessity. In the past, just like these corporations are screwing you now with Netflix, there were these HubSpots and Salesforces, and they're still here, folks. The Infusionsoft Keep that used to charge, Keep had the cojones to charge $2,500 just as a sign up to talk to somebody. And then Clayton Mask was sitting on a pot of gold, and then the equity guys stole his business because now there's 55 competitors. But guess what? Today, you can have more power than any of these platforms deliver. And I can't tell you, I had 4 conversations this week with Salesforce folks who were like, we don't know, we inherited this thing. Why is it $1,700 to $10,000 a month? You could do this all for $47 to $97 a month. And the bottom line is it gives you the tools so that you can know who's coming in to that first point of contact, giving an email, getting on a sales page, understanding which of the value propositions, what your brand stands for, that kind of stuff. I just hit 10,000 steps with all my.
The part there that breaks my heart is you'll have a lot of these businesses, they're being pushed into Salesforce or HubSpot, which could do a million things. That's like getting a F1 fighter jet just to go from your home to your friend's house. Like, it's an overkill. You don't need that much. Yeah, that's it.
Or you need, because I joke about it, but all day long, I still got paper and pen right next to my desk. Okay. I spent 2 weeks coding custom software. Like I started the show today. And you know what I still do? I write down notes on my notepad of like A, B, C, D. And in the same way, if I met somebody, I make a note on the phone. This is her name. This is how many kids she has. This is where she went to school. This is where I met her. So that if I ever needed it, I could come back to it. And in the same way, when you take on your customers, that's what you do. Now, you also brought up some really, really interesting stuff about whether you're spending ad dollars, hiring somebody to do it, or doing it yourself. I personally believe that direct ad spend is not in and of itself a bad thing, but that the Emperor's New Clothes has revealed that Facebook is flushing 1/3 to 40% of your money down the toilet on false stuff, and Google is hosing you, and that the only thing that you will guarantee yourself of success on in the future is 2 things. Social media marketing, like you make videos or posts, or going into places where you're interacting with people like forums or social media stuff.
I'll reframe that, and take those 2 things. It just lives under the umbrella of brand marketing. You need to just build a brand, let people know your brand, whether it's sponsoring some kids' softball league, sponsoring a football game. As long as your brand is known, that will help you exponentially in any marketing channel you then go through. Because whether it's Google Organics or it's Facebook, if you don't have an actual brand or a business name, you're going to have less trust. They're going to be worried, like, are you a scammer? Are you a legit business? Just having these things in place that you need to do regardless will make your life and your marketing budget that much more actionable and that much more less wasteful.
But it has to do with the product. It has to do with the brand. It has to do with the services. For example, and by the way, look, I'm old school with Pagely, no longer in existence. Josh sold that to I want to say it's GoDaddy. So the old school part of me says, when you go into the marketing relationship, you really have to understand whether you're dealing with, for example, like we just talked about the Sponge Daddy. He got a no from 3M who had a quadrillion-dollar budget. They didn't understand the product. Lori Grenier understood the product. She understood who would be attracted to it. Originally there was a debate too about QVC, because he had already been on QVC 4 times with some good success, but he wanted a bigger brand. Guess what? It wasn't just the Sponge Daddy. Now there are 97 products, literally. I think it might be less, but there are literally dozens and dozens of daddy products. Sponge Mommy. Well, maybe it's Mommy. I'm not sure. No, it's Daddy. It's like
they got Sponge Mommy too. They got quite a few.
They spun off the branding. He's a big part of it because he's such a good personality. But they understood, like I was referring to earlier, you could sell like Poofka is a $199 package that gives you everything that you need for basic business stuff on Canva and elsewhere. It's the same thing as you'd get as part of the launch kit or as part of the personal service, but it's like buying a sponge versus buying a cleaning service, right? And so you need to understand when you're marketing, if you're going to do ad spend, if you're going to do large scale budget, if you're going to have somebody you hire, that's a much, much different thing than, look, I've got a one-time product. Maybe that sells really well in a workshop, maybe as a webinar, maybe as a lead magnet with a trial. and that leads into it. So, understanding not only the channels and which place you are in the sales funnel, but you also have to understand, because I am big cynic on any random Google ads. I am a huge proponent, huge win on spending your time and even time on people to help you make quality content marketing your product. You can look at, it's a ridiculous example, but like, look at Logan Paul with Prime. I mean, he's a monster marketer, but he's a human being. I don't know, but like, he goes into a boxing ring or something, and he's like hitting people on the head with a giant inflatable Prime with that other was the guy, he's his partner, right? The rap star, but no, even the
KSI.
KSI, right? So they understand the product. And you can look at I've been watching like Ryan Reynolds, right? Like, he's all about it's product.
He's leveraging his brand.
He's leveraging his brand. Content, even the Wrexham show. So I think that's the future of this, where you have a personality wrapped around it, and you content market in a way that you can measure, versus throwing money at Google that's just going to take your money.
Yeah. And a good example of that is, if you live in the States, you have Progressive, who had Flo was their spokesperson. We have Ronald McDonald's. We have Mr. Clean. And the challenge a lot of business owners have is, I don't have the time to make videos. It's like, look, if you don't have the time to make videos, you better get ready to have time to spend money on money you may or may not get back. Like, any ad spend should be money you're okay losing, because there is no guarantee it's going to come back. But if you're willing to take the time to make these videos, and it doesn't need to be a lavish, perfect lighting, as long as the sound is good enough, that's all that happens. Like, I watched the video of a guy explaining math puzzles, and I watched the full 7-minute clip. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about bed mass and functions, and it just brought back memories. But the basic you have, just explaining what you're doing, explaining the product you have, explaining the service you have, that builds over time, and that could then be used as a marketing tool and clipped into many different pieces and be repurposed. But if you're not going to build that product, you're ready to pay someone to run ads, and they're going to spend the first 3 months just testing, seeing what works, because you have no data to tell them, hey, I did this and this worked, but this doesn't work. Cool. They're not going to run with them that type of process to run ads on. Let's run ads on what you say works, and I could then branch off of that and test more things, so that your money's being better spent.
I think this is what brings up when I listened to My First Million, or when we started this show, about like understanding where you want to be in the marketing. Are you the person doing the marketing? Are you the solopreneur, the creator, the entrepreneur, or are you somebody who has the budget? Like, for example, I enjoy the fact that my concierge clients, who pay me either $2,500 or $5,000 for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, which is not like 40 hours a week, it's just get it done. They pay a handsome amount of money, relatively speaking. But when you compare it to all the things that get done, because I just know how to go bing, 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 it's a value proposition. But what those relationships really end up being is the same thing. Like, I'm not ashamed, I have not a huge yard, but like, I have a landscaper. I have somebody who cuts the grass, goes on the roof. I have somebody who comes now, maybe you can see, who cleans the office. I have services for which I'd rather hire a professional who's efficient, in the same way that I have a relationship the other way around. So I think that's important to understand. When we're discussing marketing, I'm really specifically saying you're going to DIY it until you get to the point where you can teach or show somebody, or you have the budget to have somebody else do it for you. Because it's really different, isn't it? I mean, like, turning
Big
somebody
time.
loose with a Facebook budget is like giving them your kids to babysit or something. I mean, yeah.
And what I'll add to that is, you're going to have to put sweat equity in, guaranteed. And best case scenario, what I say is, put some money aside, hire someone to create a marketing plan for you. At least you know where you got to get to. And then when you get to that certain milestone, now you're ready to hire someone to do something exclusively. So like, I'll get clients, I'm like, look, you're not ready for SEO right now because it makes no sense. You're going to be spending money that no one knows who you are. What you need to do is focus on social media, focus on getting stuff into the newspaper if you can. Let the community know that you exist. Let people start searching for you. And then put some money aside for the next 3-4 months. Put aside $500 or $1,000 for 4 months, because you need to start your marketing with a budget of at least, like, if you're doing SEO, you need at least $2,000 a month for it to even make sense. And if you don't have $2,000 a month, at least save 6 months. Yeah, at least save 6 months of that. So when you start, you're giving that marketer a chance to get results for you. Because if you give the guy a marketer 1 month, there's nothing they could do for you. Like, they're trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat with minimal
idea. Like, I mean, not to interrupt your thought, but like, this is where I get all riled up. Not because I disagree with you. I agree with you. So let's go back to our dating example. Let's go back to guerrilla style marketing. Let's go back to relationship marketing because you are the face, the voice, the entrepreneur. I mean, this is what I'm presuming. How are you ever going to know what your customers want unless you interact with them? How are you going to know how to improve your Bumble profile, your your Hinge profile if you never talk to 100 people that you're interested in online, and they say like, I liked your picture, you're an idiot, you said the stupid thing, I had a great. You need to have the interaction. So as a premise, I'd say, first of all, it's, as you alluded to, it would be a waste of your money, unless you were a multi-million-dollar trust fund baby or a corporation, to start with paying somebody as a professional marketer until you understood your own product and your own customers. And only then, if you desire. Like the Sponge Daddy guy, he was the genius. Like he was it, and Lori understood it, and then she took over from there. But like, you need to get to that stage. Only then do you decide how much gas to pour on. And it's interesting because I do aspire to the, and I agree with your concept, that once you understand through death by a million cuts, like what works, what doesn't, then you can spend the money on people to execute for you. Like you don't need to be the one that's like setting up your social media and all the rest. It could be all around, like, I hate to bring his name into it, but like a Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy, one of these like clowns that are just infinitely successful everywhere. They have a team of 100 who are just putting them in front of the camera and slicing and dicing it. But that's still them. They started out with the infinite hustle, right? Everybody has both of those guys, and they're not examples for normal people, but on a down to earth level, I've succeeded my entire life by saying, if I talk to 10 people, if I get one person to say yes, then I can get 100 people and 10 people say yes. And if I understand from 100 people what they want, I get to 200 people and I get 20 people. And 20 people with the typical product is a really good business. If your overhead is low, you don't have a staff, and you've got a 90% plus profit margin. And especially if it's a high ticket item, like as using the kit, you could take the kit and do a $5,000 job in like a 2-day weekend. I mean, that's it. So,
and keeping it down to earth, right? It's whether you're starting or you already have your business running, what I would say is put money aside every month as a marketing budget. So when the time comes to hire someone, you have the data to back up. I know this works, this doesn't work. And two, you have enough money that they could actually get an adequate job done. If you're trying to run ads with $500 ad spend, you're spending more money on that person managing it for $1,000 to spend $500. It doesn't make any sense.
I think the final thing that comes from all this is, where do you go? So like when it comes to marketing and you've got all the data and the tracking and you've spent a little money, like where do you go? And some people say to reinvest as much as you can back into the business. And that's arguably true. But I would suggest that it really has to do with like your ultimate motive. So for example, let's go back to the nature of the products. If you have a customer who buys a one-time product and you don't intend to make 98 other related products that would be interesting to them, you pretty much should orient your marketing towards the idea that your CAC and your ROI are going to be intimately related. CAC being, customer acquisition cost, and your ROI is return on investment. Like if it costs you $100 of time or advertisement to get somebody who buys something for $199, and then you've got a cost of goods sold and you've got maybe an affiliate, like you better be damn sure that that $37 profit is worth all the effort if you only have one thing to sell them. Versus if you have a recurring revenue type product, maybe it's a sticky thing, maybe like, for example, the hosted version of LaunchKit or the recurring revenue of LaunchKit, whichever format, you get all the software and it's got to be updated. And people see the value in that. So I can spend more time, effort, money building a relationship, because once people get hooked onto it, they recognize, and it's very sticky. They don't want to like jump off of it. So that's like, to me, the next step is deciding if you have success with 1 or 5 or 10 people, be thoughtful to where you're going to go next, because whether it's building up the team or spending professional advertising dollars or putting in marketing automation, it really has to be thoughtfully done. Because the worst thing that people have done in the recent past, in my experience, there was the trend towards lifetime, which, by the way, is still true. But I like lifetime. I like it in Jason Fried's once lifetime, which is a little gimmicky. It is, take the thing that you normally have a lot of customer support, a lot of ongoing problems with, blah, blah, blah. distill out of it the thing that you can give away and never deal with again. Like, just pick up the newspaper on your own. It's in the box. If you can do that, then giving it as a one-time product like we do for Poofka, that's a really intelligent way of getting an additional type of customer versus the mistake in the past, which is I went on AppSumo with my recurring revenue hosted product, and now I have 100,000 people that I am indebted to forever. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you
And
the
that's
last
like
word on this one.
even so when it comes to your money, right? It's you want to make sure your money's your army of dollar bills, right, are able to work as efficiently as possible. And to make them work as efficiently as possible, there is no fast track. It's going to take sweat equity on your side. It'll take time. But taking the time to sharpen that blade for the first 3.5 hours before going out to the chop will give you compound interest based off of that time you put in. So it's take the time to make sure you have all the tools set up now. If you're not sure what you need, hire a marketer or a consultant for an hour at a time. Like, hey, when I plan on growing, what do I need to have so I could successfully have success with the marketer I do hire then? So at least you know you have the stuff there ready to go. And you just got to leave it. You get your analytics set up, you get your search console set up, you get a Facebook pixel set up. It sits there and it just collects data for the next 6 months to a year, whatever the case may be. And then your job from then on is to focus on figuring out what offer, what product, what service, what demographic is best. Put some money aside into a bucket. So when the time comes to hire someone, you're giving them, the marketer, as much details like, oh, great, you did your homework. I can now just put my creative brain on figuring out what copy to put, what graphics, what avenue, how long to spend it into the Facebook, what funnel to pull them into. They can then mastermind an equation to not guarantee success, but spend less time on testing for the first 3 months and more time on, let's start A/B testing and figuring out what actually is going to bring money in. And we know that this is bringing money in. We could then compare it to the work you've done for the past 6 months to the work they've done in the next 10 months and see which one brought you more of an ROI.
I'm gonna let you have the last word, but I'm going to add to that by saying simply this. I would draw the line between hiring somebody and doing it yourself around if you're starting out and you shameless promotion warning. The value that I think I deliver, that we deliver through the kit, through all of the products at WP Launchify, is somebody who understands the mechanics can be owned and controlled, along with the basics ready to use of the sales funnel, the marketing automation, the membership, the e-commerce, all of the things that you need in one box at a very low price, but with the experience to get you going. Because I'm going to go back and just do a splash on top of your final word of saying, you really have to do the guerrilla marketing. You really have to start the business for yourself or your client with the proper tools, as you alluded to. And then, yes, once you find that reasonable success, you find a couple good dates on your adventures, then you could go off and invest in the team, invest in the budget. But unless or until you have that, you are just literally turning your business over to somebody that has almost no idea what you're doing until you got to the level of like corporations. But I already alluded to the fact that, like, look at some of how corporations have screwed up. I mean, seriously,
They hire an agency that hires another agency that hires another agency and just trickles down and charge you.
Vanilla Coke. I don't know what the hell the Coke was. The new Coke or WooCommerce becomes Woo. Oh, all the customers are gone. Let's go backwards. Okay. So it's a fun topic. What I want to say people can get from us is, for a free call over at wplaunchify.com, you can get started at any step along the way. So unlimited amounts of free advice. All the ingredients are for free of the recipes to use these open source tools. But what we're saying is that flea market of doing it yourself, of going randomly to Whole Foods and coming home with $700 worth of ingredients you're never going to use again, instead of buying let us just stock your fridge for $47 or $97, or we'll do it for you for $300 and you'll get the education and the result. That experience is where I feel we're demonstrating the all-in-one solution, but with the promise that you're not going to be screwed over like a Netflix or Hulu, Disney Plus, where they've got you locked into a box and you can't move. And that's a big deal. So I would encourage everybody to come visit us over at wplaunchify.com, get a free call with myself. The launch kit is available. You can get the do it yourself for $47 a month. Take $3,500 is software, all the free recipes, just follow the videos, you're done. If you want the hands-on support, you can pay for it. But in between, for $97, you get the hosted solution with email support and the recipes and the software. You can be for yourself or your client out the door with no wasted time and effort. And to me, that's like a real platform. That's WordPress as a service. And ultimately, this is content marketing, folks, because I've been doing this for 20 years. And I started out with my very first product on a hosted platform that was freemium called Ning. And 12,500 people were enamored with what my partner and I were doing, which was recycling old-fashioned chat widgets and video sharing and images into a platform where people were hungry for it. That's all that mattered to them. And similarly, I think most people here are overwhelmed with how many possible tools there are, especially now with AI. And what we're doing is saying, look, real human beings here, let's have coffee. And you can go from free to maybe 50 bucks, $100 a month, even hands-on. Look like a hero to yourself, your clients, your customers, your partners, whomever. Okay. Chris,
and to give a final, and I'll give one final comparison, probably just kind of let it hammer it home, is everything we're mentioning to do digitally, from either content marketing, creating videos, getting out there, building the page, putting content out, messaging people, following up with people. What we're doing here digitally is the same thing you would have done if you started a business in brick and mortar, where you hire a contractor, they didn't do a good job. So guess what? Now you're learning how to plaster a wall because that guy's too expensive. Okay, cool. Your business up and running. Now you're going out physically handing out flyers to people because you need people to come into your store. And then you're physically making sure you're going out, checking up on people. How do you like it? Is the service good? Is the product good? So the same thing you would have done in a brick and mortar is the same thing you need to do digitally. And for some, I can understand that it's scary. It's online. I don't know what to do. There's all this and that. There's so much to do. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's the same thing as passing out flyers, doing direct mail, knocking on the doors of the business next to you. It's the exact same thing. It's kif. They're the exact same, just now in the digital space. So that sweat equity you did there for brick and mortar is the same thing you need to do on the digital side. And we have the tools to help you make sure that when you are doing that sweat equity, everything can be tracked and tagged. And that'll allow any marketer coming on in the future to work off the stuff that you've done in a direction that'll help you grow. And if you need help with any marketing stuff, you could definitely... So it's a phenomenal term.
I'm gonna add that to your, I've used that term forever, but I'm gonna add that to your P2P because, like again, in 1997, when Friends was on TV, I was married by then. 1994, I'm on a train and then I'm looking at the Chicago Reader, like missed opportunity. And today you have an AI that can generate 4K video, create an ad, put it on a million social platforms. Like I can sit here on a weekend and have like 100 virtual employees. But the problem is not that. The problem is I still have to know what the people who are buying want to pay for. And I can only do that through sweat equity. I have to spend the time to learn what people want. And until the robots can spend money for people, that's it.
And if you have that sweat equity, you could then better train that person. Like if you were a baker and you bake the bread, now you want to outsource, you want to be able to move to something else, you're training the person to bake the bread the way you bake bread. If you're training the customer service person at the front, you're training them the way you talk to customers and interact with customers. It's the same thing for digital. If I'm a marketer coming in, I have these skills, but you need to let me know, what style do you have? Are you a lighthearted? Are you a very professional talk? Are you goofy when you're talking to them? Now I could work with that. If you're giving me a blank slate and I don't know anything, I'm going to test out 20 different things and you're paying me to test. Let's pay for actionable results and actionable steps.
When you look at the stuff that works, these people look like geniuses because they are, but they're geniuses at simplifying down the essence and testing it. So I'm not going to use Mr. Beast and all the other big names, but like they spend infinite, like he talks about hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on just perfecting a thumbnail, right? You don't need to do that, but you do need to talk to 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people, and you have to keep asking them the same stuff. Like, they say,
I saw your flyers. That's passing out the flyers.
2007-ish. So I've been on a lot of dates and got to try a lot of questions and a lot of trial and error. That's how it works, folks. So if you enjoy what you're doing, if you enjoy selling, marketing is a treat. If you do not like that, then you've got a problem on your hands. You need somebody in your business who does. Because if you do not like human beings, unless you're a super analytical person selling something like, stocks and bonds and day trade stuff, human beings are really emotional creatures. And we're making decisions now more than ever with a little guardedness towards, am I being scammed? Am I being phished? Is this a robot? Is this an AI? Like I saw
one should be guarded.
Right? Like we could talk forever. We want this show, but like Microsoft came out with that thing where you can put a still photograph up and it just like generates 4K video of the person talking.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of excited that I'm going to make a virtual me plus the voice plus the, like I could literally never leave my bed. But on the other hand, I think the customers are sort of prove to me that you're real, like in Blade Runner, like, it's going to shine the thing in the eye to see, are you really a human or are you a robot? So it'll be a fun conversation for us to have, but I hope everybody enjoyed today's show, whether you're listening live. Thanks, Alex, and the rest of you who watched live. But otherwise, on the repeat, we're very bad unapologetically about keeping a schedule, because this isn't really a podcast. This is really like an informative show that is going to evolve into, I think, part of our content marketing, to help people understand more in the future, maybe more specific examples of things that are in the kit or what we offer, because I think it's helpful. At least so far, it's been helpful. And that's it. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their weekend. Chris, you as well. Likewise. Hope everybody gets some sunshine and get to enjoy it. And if you don't have sun, just take your vitamin D's. Exactly. Spring is on the way, my friends. All right. We'll see you guys on the next show. That's a show, not a pod. And that's a wrap.